Good evening, it's meteorologist Michael Fecco. Welcome back to the 9 p.m. all-weather, all-streaming show that we do here every night during the workdays and on weekends. We stream it out to all of our streaming platforms as well as to Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So if you are joining us from either of those platforms, please feel free to leave a question or a comment down below. Hopefully, I'll be able to address everything as I go through the forecast, but if not, I'll go through at the very end and see if I can answer anything individually for you. But without further ado, let's get started here. We'll start off with a look at our headlines as we normally do, and it's mostly dry out there across the tri-state. We had a pretty nice day today. We started off with a few stray showers, especially across the far eastern portions of the tri-state, primarily Perry, Hancock, Ohio, and Muhlenberg County. Maybe had a few rumbles of thunder earlier this morning, and we stayed dry pretty much through the whole entire afternoon, and then there were a few spotty storms that kind of popped up over southern Illinois and far western Kentucky, most of which actually ended up moving out of the tri-state. So now we're all pretty much mostly dry. And we're going to remain hot through much of next week up until we get a cool down on the way for the end of next week and into next weekend. And that's going to come in along a little bit more of an unsettled weather pattern with a couple of frontal boundaries that are going to try to work through. So that will start to break our heat and introduce at least some more persistent shower chances for the end of next week and into the weekend. So that's what we're looking forward to in the next 7 days. But what about today? What happened out there outside? 96 degrees is what we warmed up to here in Evansville. Got even warmer to our south there in Paducah, 98 degrees. Same thing in St. Louis and in Springfield. A lot cooler off to our east, though. 87 up towards Indianapolis and Columbus, 86 up towards Fort Wayne. So a little bit cooler to the northeast, warmer to our west. We'll continue to see that heat kind of build in from the west and then eventually push off to our east through the end of next week. But currently, we've cooled down a good bit. 79 degrees now in Evansville, around 80 there in Newburgh, 77 out towards Lewisport, and around 76 in southern Illinois there in Harrisburg. The cooler spot on the map there actually got grazed by one of those showers, so that kind of helped cool them down a little bit faster than the rest of us. But taking a look at our setup across the U.S., we've still got this trough that's kind of just been digging into the west coast or the western half of the United States, and that's just been bringing rounds of showers and thunderstorms up through the central plains into the mountain west and into the northern plains as well. They had some severe weather up towards North Dakota. They were tracking out some tornadoes earlier, but the high pressure that we have off to our east, that has kind of been blocking anything from moving in from the west. So that's why we've been so dry here, and we'll likely stay on the drier side through the first half of next week. But taking a closer look at our Doppler radar and satellite, we had a few showers earlier this morning, especially the far eastern portions of the tri-state there. And then we dried out through much of the afternoon, and then we had a few spot showers pop up there just to the west of Evansville and then kind of slide off and out of the viewing area this afternoon. So that's kind of, we were kind of caught in between two areas of showers, one to our east this morning and then one to our west this afternoon. And then again, we had that slight chance of maybe getting grazed by one, and we did in some spots, but most of us stayed dry with plenty of sunshine for our Sunday. So here's a look at our current radar. So you can see we're picking up on some of those showers now exiting off to our west. The green you see here, that's not actually any rain. That's just maybe some bugs, maybe even some birds or some low-level clouds that the radar is picking up on. So nothing to concern yourselves over with that. And looking at the future radar, we'll stay quiet overnight tonight with mostly clear skies, and that'll lead us into a very beautiful Monday. We'll start off with plenty of sunshine, maybe becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with just the heating of the day. And again, there is that slight chance for a sprinkle, but again, it looks like most of that stays just outside of our viewing area. So another dry day for Monday. And then tonight, we'll see temperatures drop down into the mid to upper 60s. Once again, very similar to the past several nights, and then we'll warm right back up into the low to mid 90s by tomorrow afternoon. Winds will be out of the east-southeast between 4 to 6 miles per hour. Now we're talking about this heat. We can see it here on our Climate Prediction Center outlook for temperature, the 20th through the 24th, still showing above average temperatures during that time frame. So here's a look at the 7-day temperature trend. We are well above average for this time of year. I mean, over 10 degrees above where we should be. Our average high for this time in September is around 83 degrees, and our average low sits around 59. We're 10 degrees above that for our highs tomorrow, Tuesday, and then even on Wednesday, 11 degrees above our average high. And then that cold front begins to slide in for Friday and into next weekend, and that's where we'll start to see that dip in the temperature back down to near normal into the mid to lower 80s by the end of next week. But the good news is, while it is going to be hot out there, and you may have noticed even outside today, it's hot, but it's not that oppressive, hard to breathe kind of heat that we experienced earlier in the summer, the last time when we had 90-degree days. Our dew points were well into that stifling category. I mean, they were into the upper 70s and lower 80s. That is just downright tropical and disgusting. This time around, our dew points are going to be hanging out. They're going to be a little bit humid, but in more reasonable territory. So down into that pleasant and dry category, especially for Tuesday and into Wednesday there, really won't be much of a factor for our heat index value. So our actual temperatures will feel like what they're supposed to. So that is good news. So we're not expecting any sort of heat advisory headlines with that. But we are going to be drying out there through the middle of the work week. The really little rain chances for the next 7 days up until the end of next week and into next weekend. So that's what we're going to show here on the longer range European model. Dry Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even as we get into Friday morning. Not quite any shower activity just yet, but as we get into Friday evening, into Saturday, that's when we have better chances for some scattered showers and storms, and that may even linger through the weekend and into early next week. Now, we are starting to get those rain chances back in, and any little bit of rain is going to help. However, we really do need more than this. It looks like with that front or that frontal boundary is going to bring in the chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms, which isn't really the best for helping break out of this drought that we're in. Because here's a look at the actual drought monitor. You can see much of the tri-state included within that moderate drought. With the exception of the far northeastern corner there. And just to kind of go over why we kind of need more substantial rain other than just a thunderstorm to relieve ourselves of drought is because here's why. A lot of the times drought leads to drought. So it's very hard to actually kick out of this pattern because dry air, especially this time of year, as we enter late summer, early fall, we get a lot of dry air from the north coming in and we don't get as much humidity. So that actually saps a lot of the moisture out of the ground from the soil and the plants, and that actually causes them to kind of crisp up and dry up a good bit. And also is what helps keep our bodies cooler when we're sweating and we step outside. That evaporation process cools us down, but also dries us out. And each day that this process continues, we've been dealing with humidity values down into that pleasant to dry category. So it has just been gradually drying things out from the ground. And each day that that happens, it gets drier and drier and drier. And then incoming storm systems actually have a harder time to put down enough rainfall to actually break out of the dry conditions. And here's why. It makes them less likely to produce that drought-busting rain because it is so dry. But we need more frequent and light to moderate rain to break the cycle, not necessarily little pop-up thunderstorms. We need something where the rain is just covering the whole entire tri-state, but you don't want it to be too heavy. You want it to be that light, moderate stuff, so it's going to be able to soak into the ground and really deeply moisten it. But that's not what we're really expecting here for the next several days. So the drought will likely worsen as we go through next week. And outside of the viewing area here, we'll take it down to the tropics. We're kind of in the peak of hurricane season now. However, it has been relatively quiet, but the National Hurricane Center does have this area that they're watching, this potential development zone the next 7 days. It has a 70% chance of developing into a tropical storm. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. If anything develops, hopefully not, it stays out into the sea. If it does, we don't need any more natural disasters here. We could use that peace and quiet. But that is all I have here for the forecast. So there's a look at your 7-day, just to wrap it up. Pretty quiet here through the first part of the work week and hot, topping out in the low to mid 90s. And then we start to see some slight chances for scattered showers and storms reintroduced into the forecast for the end of this week and into next weekend. But that's also going to help cool us down to back to around normal, so into the low to mid 80s, especially by Sunday. So if you're not a fan of this heat, you just got to wait a few more days. And that kind of actually brings us into the first day of fall, because that is next Monday. Hopefully we can get a nice, cool, crisp start to the fall season. So that's all I've got here for the forecast. So I'm going to go ahead and look at some of your comments. We've got Ricky saying hello. Cheyenne is also saying good evening to you. Jeanette says she is not complaining because she is not a winter person. I think me and you were on the same wavelength there. I absolutely despise winter. I do not like the cold, and I do not like the snow. I'm very much a fan of this 90-degree heat. Just keeps everything nice and warm and sunny. But yeah, I'm with you on that one. Laura, she's watching from Dawson Springs. We're glad you're here. Mary says she is watching from Central City, Kentucky. She appreciates these weather shows and helps to schedule out her week. And well, I'm glad that we're helping you out. That's kind of the point of these weather streams. You can hop in on your leisure and get all the information that you need. And then Darlene also tuning in from Madisonville. But that is all I'm seeing here in the comments. So if we don't have any questions, I'm going to hop off of the live stream. I'll send you guys over to 14 News at 10 for all the latest news and weather headlines. Of course, we'll be on whenever the football game ends. It might not be exactly at 10, maybe a little bit later. But of course, stay tuned and watch that. You'll get your latest news and weather. Have a great night and stay safe.